You are hearing me speak into the Shure SM7b, which is the grail mic for a lot of content creators, podcasters, streamers, voice actors, and musicians. But for those of us on a budget, a lot of us like to get the Fifine AM8 as some kind of a placeholder microphone before eventually upgrading to the Shure SM7b. The SM7b remains the gold standard, and a lot of us tried to get this mic, the Fifine AM8, to sound as close as possible to the Shure SM7b. So to do that, what do? We usually try to get a $50 interface like the Fifine SE1. Now I have a whole other video why these two might be compatible, but clearly, although this $50 interface is compatible with this USB mic, this interface is not going to power the SM7b. So if you're thinking of upgrading from the Fifine AM8 to the Shure SM7b in the future, you may want to consider skipping the budget interface and go straight for a pro interface. This is the Presonus Quantum ES2, and it has two insane features that I've never had on an audio interface. And the first one has to do with the gain. This Shure SM7b needs about 60 decibels of clean gain to sound sufficiently loud. Fifine SE1, $50, 50 decibels of gain. This Moto M2, which was my daily driver for 4 years, $200 interface, 60 decibels of gain. So it meets the expected requirement. The interface I'm using now is the Apollo Twin X, a $1,000 audio interface with 65 decibels of gain. Focusrite Vocaster 2, this is $200 to $300, 70 decibels of gain. But this Presonus Quantum ES2 has a whopping 75 decibels of gain. That is some serious future-proofing.
Wow!
Now the question is it usable at 75 decibels of gain? Or is it a gimmick? There's only one way to find out. Let the unboxing begin. By the way, Presonus did send me this audio interface, but everything I say in this video are my thoughts only. Let's see what's in the box. Ooh, seems very well protected. Oh wow. That build quality is incredible. It appears to be an all-metal body. Ooh, okay, it is a fingerprint magnet. There's a sticker that says to download the Universal Control program from mypresonus.com. Yeah, that's nice, but I want to peel this off because it's going to look cleaner that way. That is a lovely gunmetal look. Look, it's so fancy that even the manual comes in a case. Now, look at these cables. These are definitely not Thunderbolt cables, and this Quantum ES2 is not a Thunderbolt interface, but you can see just how thick that USB-C is compared to the ones that come with USB microphones. All right, let's plug it in. I can't wait to try out that second special feature that I mentioned. Okay, we have turned on the Presonus Quantum ES2. And I have switched over to the Fifine AM8 with this nice blue RGB that matches the blue on the Quantum ES2. Look at that. And in case it matters to you, these are actually a darker blue in person. Let's go over the features. Here you have your input meter to track your mic and guitar volume, your output meters, and I love how they are beautifully labeled with the 6, 18, and 30 decibels dBFS. You have a sync LED icon that turns blue when you are connected, and this also helps indicate if the interface is getting enough power if you plug it into, say, something like a phone. You have this one knob that controls everything from your mic gain to your headphone volume to your speaker volume. And you have a 48 volts or phantom power button in case you connect a condenser microphone to this. And these buttons are for selecting your input channels. Say you wanted to adjust the gain or volume of the first microphone, you simply select this, then crank the gain up and down like so. It turns white for a while so that you know that you have switched to that channel. And if I click channel 2, as you can see here, it has a different gain setting. I'm going to switch back and forth. As you can see, this is the amount of gain we set here. If I move here, the gain goes down, and I go back here, it is back where I left it. When I select channel 1, there is no 48 volts. When I select channel 2, there is 48 volts. And the practical implication of this is if you want to use a dynamic mic as well as a condenser mic, you can choose which of the channels gets 48 volts phantom power. That actually isn't a standard across interfaces because this older Presonus Studio 68, whenever I selected 48 volts on this older interface, it would apply that to both of the mics. Some mics don't need that, so that's a good feature to have. And this is a really good one. This is the Autogain feature. I am talking. There we go. So what happened there was when I pressed the Autogain feature, it automatically set the gain for me and targeted a certain loudness level. I don't know the exact amount, but so far it's been pretty good. And this is the instrument input for your guitar or bass. It also has 75 decibels of gain and is co-developed with Fender. Yes, the Fender that makes guitars. You have a mute button that mutes your audio playback, which can also be a dim button, which lowers volume rather than completely mutes it. And this main button lets you control the volume for your monitor speakers, and the headphone button, which turns the knob green, lets you control your headphone volume. Of course, this is the headphone port. You got some air vents in front. Here you have your Kensington lock, MIDI in and out, a much needed and appreciated power switch, the USB-C port for connecting to your devices. And this over here is really useful. This is an auxiliary power port. Let's say you want to plug this interface into your phone, and your phone has trouble powering this up. Use a USB-C cable plugged into a wall socket to power the interface so the interface won't depend on your phone for power. This might be the first audio interface that I've had with this feature, and I love it. You have your main outputs for your speakers. This is left and this is right. And these are your mic line-in combo ports. All right, let's do some quick tests. So first we're going to test the gain on the Fifine AM8, then afterwards the Shure SM7b. You're hearing me speak into the Fifine AM8 in USB mode. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. You're hearing me speak into the Fifine AM8 plugged into the Presonus Quantum ES2, and this is how that sounds. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. I'm speaking into the Fifine AM8 plugged into the Presonus Quantum ES2 with a gain set to 50 dB. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Let's listen to the noise floor. Okay, the gain is now set to 55 dB. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Let's listen for the noise floor. At this point, I'm going to turn off my studio light because it does have a fan. I'm hearing a bit of it and it's getting into the recordings. Gain set to 60 dB I would clip if I were closer, so at this point I have to step back. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Let's hear that noise floor. Fifine AM8 with a gain now set to 65. This is the maximum gain of the Apollo Twin X. I've also turned the AC off so we get a really silent noise floor. So right now the quietest point is around -58, -60 dB. You might hear a little bit of that preamp noise. The gain is now set to 70 dB on the Fifine AM8. At this point, you can practically use it as an overhead mic, but I wouldn't recommend it because can you hear these sounds? Yeah, it hears everything now. We have reached the end of the line, 75 decibels of gain, and I'm just talking at my regular speaking volume. Any louder and I could clip the audio. Now at this point, I might be hearing a bit of digital interference caused by the USB connection. I have USB plugged in just for the fancy RGB, but I'm taking that out now. Okay, still at 75 decibels of gain. You can now see that the Fifine AM8 with Quantum ES2 now has a flickering noise floor over here. It's about -48 decibels at its lowest point.
which is still fairly acceptable for consumer audio, but not pro audio. I brought it back down to about 67 decibels, which has a more workable noise floor. It still hits minus 60 dB at its lowest point, and again, minus 60 dB is the pro standard for a noise floor. I wasn't expecting this, but hey, this is a pretty fun use case for this interface.
Okay, we've switched to the Shure SM7b, and we're at 50 decibels of gain, so I have to shout for you to hear me. Now at 55 decibels of gain, it's a bit louder. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Now this is the standard 60 decibels of gain expected to run the Shure SM7b. How does this sound? The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Let's listen for that noise floor. On my meters, it is sub 60 decibels, so this is a very quiet noise floor. By the way, we're also going to test the Audio-Technica AT2020. It's a condenser mic, so it doesn't need as much gain, but we might as well try it out. Still on the Shure SM7b, now 65 decibels of gain. This is a very comfortable level. I'm beginning to hear a bit of hiss through my headphones, but the noise floor is still sub 60 decibels. Very professional and clean. Okay, now 70 decibels of gain on the Shure SM7b. With this much gain, I can comfortably step back from the mic and not have to kiss it all the time. The noise is flickering between sub 60 dB and sometimes a bit higher. Take note that the noise floor is the lowest possible value that you can get. Even though the white noise is flickering like this, you measure the lowest point possible. So in this case, I'm still seeing a noise floor of minus 65 dB. And that flickering could be caused by my breath, interference, or other factors. Now using the Shure SM7b connected to the Quantum ES2 with 75 decibels of gain. I had to use a calmer tone in my speech at a distance because I might actually clip the audio. So the lowest value I'm getting now is about minus 55, minus 52 dB. This is somewhere between pro and consumer grade audio. So prosumer, I guess.
At this point, you could talk quietly into the Shure SM7b, and it's still going to sound good. I dropped the gain down to 70 dB, just to give it a bit more headroom. If you were listening closely, you'd actually hear that there was a big difference between 75 dB and 70 dB.
You're hearing me speak into the Audio-Technica AT2020, and this just has 40 decibels of gain. This is a loud enough speaking volume, but I think there's a whole lot of noise. 40 dB seems sufficient, but I can hear a lot of that hiss. This is a minus 50 dB noise floor, so either my unit is defective, or this mic had way more self-noise than I remember. If I boost this to somewhere around 45 dB, yeah, you can definitely hear that. Let me try another condenser mic. Okay, you're hearing me speak into the Boya BY-M1000 Pro condenser microphone. The gain is only set to 47, and we have a sub 60 dB noise floor. I can lower that even more. Yeah, this is a setup that I might use just because I enjoy using it. So now we're on Reaper, and I wanted to show you the special features that I was talking about earlier. Have you ever tried using the playback feature of a USB mic only to hear that your voice is coming back maybe half a second delayed? Yeah, that is called latency, and yes, it is a bad thing. The Quantum ES2 solves that by having near zero latency. So you're hearing me speak right now, and you can probably hear a bit of background hiss right here. But the moment that I click this, it is gone. And I am not getting any latency at all. You know why? I just turned on my voice denoise plugin. Now this is a separate product, it does not come with the Quantum ES, but this is a powerful plugin and normally it introduces latency. Let me add a couple more plugins. Let's click this compressor over here. I'm going to add another EQ over here. I'm still not getting any latency. There might be a tiny bit at this point, but it's still not distracting. I could even add reverb right here and yeah, that was still live. Now what I noticed here is when I activate this mouth declick plugin, yeah, that is introducing a lot of latency to the monitoring, which is very distracting. But as you can see here, in a few seconds, 134 clicks were repaired. This is a power-hungry plugin. This is a feature that I wish my audio interfaces from a few years ago had. Now, the only catch here is you can only monitor your voice when you have audio software on. Based on my testing and research, Presonus ditched the onboard monitoring that just happens on interface. That's probably one of the things that they decided to sacrifice to improve the quality of the standout features. Now, this here is the Universal Control app. This is how I was able to know the amount of gain I was using from 58 dB, 52 dB. And yes, this is actually changing the actual inputs on the interface itself. You got your 48 volts here, you got your Autogain here. You got meters which have a wider range. You can even control your headphones and your speakers from here. If you are a keyboard and mouse type, you don't really need to touch your audio interface. And if you prefer, they also have a phone app as well as an iPad app. The pros and cons are pretty straightforward. You got a ridiculous amount of gain, 75 decibels. And with that, you're never going to need a FET head. Near zero latency monitoring when you have a lot of plugins open is priceless. 48 volts phantom power that you can control independently on the first and second channels. The slanted, tabletop-friendly form factor. An instrument jack co-developed with Fender. An on-off switch and an aux power input? And I'm just noticing this now, but the headphone amps are pristine. With the current amount of gain that you're hearing, I am not even hearing a slight hiss. Nothing at all. Yeah, nothing. And by the way, I'm using the Beyerdynamic DT770 Pro's 250 ohms edition, which notoriously have low volume on most audio interfaces. But on the Quantum ES2, it sounds super clean. Even when I raise my gain even more, I think these are practically noiseless headphone amps. Maybe it's silent because it doesn't get too loud, but I'd say it's comfortably loud. And of course there's the sound. Tone-wise, I am digging this interface. I love what the Quantum ES2 does to the AM8. To my ear, it appears to capture more of that high-end information in greater detail, and it adds a pinch more warmth. The highs being captured makes the difference between this microphone kind of sounding like a pillow and not sounding like it has a pillow on. It's almost as if you took off the pop filter. Another pro is you get 6 months of free access to Presonus' suite of premium tools, Studio One Plus. You also get a copy of Studio One Pro, and if your trial expires and you decide to subscribe to their service, you actually get a perpetual license to Studio One Pro. Now for the cons. I'm a little spoiled. I wish the software had live EQ and compression. When you have an interface that can do zero latency monitoring, you would hope that you could use some of that in live applications. And probably the most upsetting thing to me is that I do wish it had on-device monitoring. I feel as though they may have relied too much on the zero latency monitoring, but I wish I didn't have to open software to do that. Maybe they could add that to a future iteration of the Universal Control app. And aside from those, I really have no more cons. Maybe if they gave the Quantum ES2's 32-bit float, that would have been incredible, but then that would do away with the higher models. So do I recommend the Presonus Quantum ES2? Yes, primarily for recording artists. If you do any kind of high-end or professional recording work, such as music or voiceovers, or maybe you're a podcaster or content creator that really likes to use the Shure SM7b with 75 decibels of gain, I think this is a very appealing interface. But if you're a streamer who primarily has live applications, you don't exactly get to add the oomph of EQ and compression to your live voiceovers. I think it could still be a good option for live applications, maybe because of the 75 decibels of gain, but I wouldn't say it's the best option for that. Overall, the Presonus Quantum ES2 is truly a next-gen interface with next-gen features and higher standards that meet today's more competitive audio interface market. And yes, I do think it sounds great with the Fifine AM8. I want to thank these amazing people for making this video possible. Thank you. For more Fifine AM8 videos, microphone reviews, other gear reviews, and possibly voice acting, hit that subscribe button down below. It really helps this channel every time someone subscribes. I'll see you in this video.